Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So 41-year-old Kentucky resident Joseph Howe traveled to D.C. with his friend and co-defendant Michael Sparks. They also went with some other friends, but they haven't been charged with any crimes. So Howe and his group attended Trump's speech at the Ellipse, and then they left before it was over, and they headed to the Capitol. Howe was wearing a plate carrier vest, and he was carrying a respirator mask, goggles, and other supplies in his backpack. You know, the kind of stuff you take on a tourist visit. As they walked, Howe spoke with someone who was filming all of the action, and he was recorded saying, quote, "We're getting in that building." Then the person filming questioned Howe's statement, and he repeated it 5 times. He said, quote, "We're getting in it." And when someone else noted that all it would take is one person and then the rest of the mob would follow, Howe commented, quote, "Let it go south in there." As Howe and the others approached the Capitol, they passed by barricades and fencing that the mob had torn down, and Howe assisted some other people in carrying a man to an ambulance. He was, I believe, the man, sadly, who died of some sort of heart failure or something like that. They just said that he was having a medical emergency. He was then seen putting on his mask and his goggles to protect against pepper spray that was being deployed, and he ascended a staircase under the inaugural scaffolding. So he saw officers who were being attacked by the mob, and then one in particular was surrounded. He was completely outnumbered, and Howe saw him struggling with other people. But instead of helping him, Howe grabbed the officer's riot shield, which was his only defense, and he ripped it away from the officer. As soon as Howe took away his shield, the officer was hit in the head with rebar and a baseball bat. So he fell down, he collapsed. Later that day, that officer passed out, and he was rushed to the hospital, and he was diagnosed with a concussion from blunt force trauma. So Howe didn't care about the attack on that officer, so he took off with the riot shield. He approached the next line of police, and he was seen on video deploying what was either pepper spray or bear spray, some sort of chemical, at the police. Then he joined with others in ripping the bike rack barricades away from the police. And as the officers were trying to fight the mob, Howe pulled out a collapsible baton and he started swinging it in the direction of the barricades. From there, Howe headed to the Upper West Terrace, and when he was there, he was seen pushing an officer from behind, so that officer stumbled. After breaching the final line of officers, Howe was recorded, you guys have probably seen this video a bunch of times, he was recorded kicking the Senate wing doors. He was trying to break into the building. His friend, Michael Sparks, was literally the first person who we've seen in videos climbing through the broken Senate wing window and into the Capitol. So after a Proud Boys member broke the window, his friend was the first one to climb inside. And then, as we've all also seen, other people followed, and then they busted the doors open from the inside. So Howe was one of the first people to walk into the building. He rushed through the building with the mob, and when an officer was knocked to the ground, Howe pulled a fire extinguisher off the wall and sprayed that officer directly in the face. That officer and then 2 others who were in the immediate vicinity had to leave the building. They couldn't breathe. And so when they left the building, now you're down by 3 more officers. You're leaving the Capitol and everyone in it even more vulnerable. And another officer, not the one he sprayed in the face, but one of the ones who had to leave, said he considered drawing his weapon because he couldn't see. Once he got hit by the fire extinguisher gas, he had vision issues, but he realized a lot of the people in the mob were wearing helmets and body armor, so he said it wouldn't have done any good, and they were so outnumbered. Eventually, Howe exited the building, and his friend Sparks turned himself in the next day because he realized He was a wanted man. There were images all over the place, all over the news. In April of 2021, the FBI went and interviewed Howe, and he admitted that he was at the Capitol, but he claimed he never went inside. Howe said that he walked up the steps and he just looked through the window, but he never actually entered. Well, over 1 year later, the FBI discovered that Howe was the man in the gas mask and the goggles who was attacking police. So at that point, they approached him again. They gave him photos. They showed him video evidence of his crimes. And he continued to try and lie, but ultimately conceded, quote, "I know I'm in trouble." And then he immediately ended the interview. So Howe was arrested in October of 2022, and he was charged with obstructing an official proceeding, civil disorder, 2 counts of assaulting officers, destruction of government property, entering a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, one of which included a deadly or dangerous weapon enhancement, 2 counts of physical violence, and parading or demonstrating in a Capitol. In August of 2023, Howe pleaded guilty to obstructing an official proceeding and assaulting officers. So he faced up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. The prosecutor, however, asked for 57 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. And even after Howe took a guilty plea, he still tried to downplay his actions to the investigators. He actually blamed the police for allowing him and the others to get so close to the building. And then he also has a bit of a criminal history. In 2012, Howe was convicted of criminal trespassing. Shocking. In 2013, he was convicted for driving under the influence. And then in 2014, he was once again convicted for driving while intoxicated. U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly presided over Howe's case, and unfortunately, I couldn't locate any details about the sentencing hearing. But in the end, Howe was sentenced to 50 months in prison, 1 year of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. So almost the full prison term that was requested, but the judge really fell short on the probation period. I think that someone like this, someone who was at the forefront of the attack, was like the tip of the spear, should have received one of the longest sentences, especially when you're attacking and obstructing multiple officers, right? And purposely trying to prevent the certification of the election. I mean, in this case, it was very clear cut. With many other people, it was like, maybe that was their intention. Maybe they were just there to protest. No, this guy was very explicit, and a little over 4 years, it just doesn't seem adequate for that, for trying to steal other people's votes, for trying to overturn an election, literally taking part in an insurrection. Anyway, I'll let you all know if I hear any more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.